Hello everyone, my name is Lauren and I hope this video finds you well, and I really do mean it when I say that. I know that everything's kind of crazy right now, especially politically around the world, and I know that it's a very uncertain time right now, so I really hope that whoever's watching this, you're doing okay, and you're just trying to get through these really tough times, because I know that that's what I'm doing right now. I'm pretty much just trying to take it day by day, hour by hour, especially as the Trump administration has been put into the US government again. And that's very concerning as somebody who lives in Canada. And so I wanted to use this platform as an outlet to kind of talk about my feelings around this situation. But basically, I wanted to address the elephant in the room in this video, just talk about the political situation, especially in the Western world. But obviously, there are issues happening all over the planet that I can barely scratch the surface of. And I've been doing my best to stay politically informed on everything that's going on. But honestly, it's really tough on my mental health to pay attention to everything, especially the stuff that's currently going on in Canada and the storm that is brewing concerning the leader of the Conservative Party and the fact that the Conservative Party might be elected during the next Canadian election, which is very concerning for me and my family and most of my closest friends. But first, I want to get into my thoughts about what's going on in the US right now, and then how that has an impact on Canada, and basically why I care as a Canadian citizen what goes on in the American political climate. So I remember the day that Trump was elected for his first term in 2016. I literally remember watching parts of the election go on with my parents, because obviously I was still in high school at the time. I was 16 when Trump was elected for the first time. And I remember watching bits of the election and then going to bed and just being very afraid and nervous about what was going to happen in the US. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night and checking my phone half asleep and reading that Trump had won the election and just feeling so defeated and scared. So I went to school that day, and I remember as a dramatic high schooler, I wore like the most depressing outfit I could find, and that's saying a lot coming from someone who was kind of emo at the time in high school. So I wore my most depressing outfit because I was literally going around telling people that I was in mourning because of what was happening in the US and the fact that Trump was elected. That may sound dramatic, but I think it's a good reflection of my political beliefs then, which also strongly carries into the way I feel about politics in the US now. So if that's how I felt when I was 16, I'm sure you can only imagine how I feel now as a 25-year-old watching Trump be elected in the US. 8 or so years after the first time it happened. So it's very scary, especially because the first time it happened, it felt very accidental and it felt like a fluke. And it felt like, okay, Trump's just a TV personality. He doesn't really know what he's doing. So hopefully he won't actually cause that much damage. But now it feels like there's a lot more at stake. It feels like Trump knows much more what he's doing this time around. And he has surrounded himself with very scary figures, whether they be political or societal. People like Elon Musk and RFK Jr. are some very big names and also very scary figures to involve in politics, especially since Elon Musk is the owner of Twitter, and I will never call it X, because as long as he never acknowledges that his daughter is a trans woman and that she deserves to have rights, I will never call Twitter X, because I just do not support him or any of his beliefs or values or the way he runs his platforms. And so why would I ever respect that he changed the name of Twitter when he never acknowledges that his daughter is a human being? He's such a loser. For someone who is the richest person on the entire planet and was the trailblazer and spearheaded electric vehicles in like the modern age as we know it now, he is such an idiot. And it's so scary to see Trump have him so close to him in the political world. And then RFK Jr. is also very scary, especially because he doesn't believe in vaccines, or at least refuses to say that he really does. And then having him be appointed the leader of the US Health Department it makes no sense to me. Overall, though, the main political things that worry me about Trump's presidency, I mean, pretty much every belief that he has goes against my beliefs. So I think we would be pretty much opposites if we ever met and we had to have a conversation. I think we would find that we have no common ground on any points at all. But the main things that I'm concerned about are immigration and queer rights and the environment. First of all, immigration and the way he's handling immigration is so insane. I mean, immediately upon entering the White House again, he is deporting thousands, tens of thousands of illegal immigrants in the US to other countries. Obviously, he's trying to get rid of people who came into the country illegally, which may be true. They might have come into the country illegally, but you have to keep in mind that so many of these people, millions of these people, are what's keeping the US economy alive. Millions of these people are the ones building American houses. They're the ones working in American grocery stores and on farms and in factories, packing your Amazon packages, getting you your food that you buy every week at the grocery store. These undocumented immigrants are pretty much the backbone of US society and the US economy. And so deporting them is pretty much the US shooting itself in the foot because it's getting rid of the people it needs most. And it's been exploiting these people for a very long time at their own benefit without providing the proper wages or the proper working conditions for these people because they know that they have the upper hand over them, because these illegal immigrants can't necessarily go to the police force to tell them that they're being unfairly taken advantage of at work or in other facets of life. So their employers are overworking them and underpaying them, and they know that they can get away with it. But these people continue to do the work. They continue to try to hustle to live the American dream. And so they have become the backbone of American society. So getting rid of them is really an unsmart decision. And it's obviously all based on racism and disinformation, saying that these people are the ones that are committing the most murders or the most crimes in the US, which is statistically not true. I believe that the majority of the people who are committing crimes are not illegal immigrants. I'm pretty sure the majority of people who are committing these crimes are US born citizens. So there you go. You're pretty much putting the blame for something on the wrong group of people, and the US and the Trump administration are finger pointing at a group of people who are not to blame for the situation or the issue at hand. Another group that Trump absolutely loves to point the finger at and to blame all of his problems on are queer people. Yay! As a queer person myself, I am non-binary and pansexual. This has a huge impact on me and pretty much most of my friends and family. So this issue in particular hits very close to home. Watching Trump say all the things that he says about queer people is very scary for me personally, and personally offends me on a very deep level. And immediately after entering the office, Trump has threatened to ban trans people from serving in the military. And he has stated that there are only 2 genders in the United States that are recognized. And he is reverting back sex changes on legal documents like passports. And he has garnered so much hate against trans people and queer people in general, and has pointed the finger at them so much that they've become a scapegoat group, and tons of pro-Trump Americans now view them as the cause for their problems, and now it is more likely for queer people to experience violence in the United States. And this is very true for immigrants as well. It's not just a queer people issue. But queer people have been especially a hot topic in the last 1.5 to 2 years, and there has been tons of anti-trans legislation, hundreds of bills that are trying to be passed through government in order to take rights away from trans people specifically. And he's basically spent his entire campaign and gearing up to winning the presidency and basically coming in and immediately taking away tons of rights for trans people. In the first week of Trump entering office for a second term, he immediately declared that there are only 2 genders, which is actually so funny because what he did was scientifically and biologically incorrect. I'm pretty sure what he said was that there are two genders, obviously being only male or female. And he said that males are formed upon contraception when they have a specific gene or a specific chromosome. But you don't get the Y chromosome that appears in males until about the 5 or 6 week mark of pregnancy, I'm pretty sure. So to say that a fetus is male upon contraception is biologically incorrect, because up until the 5 to 6 week mark, every single fetus is technically a female. So Trump basically stated that everyone in the US was a woman, or at least a female. So congrats to Trump for being the first woman president of the United States. It's just absolute craziness. And if you look even just to the tip of the iceberg, you can see that there is no logic or science or fact behind anything that Trump or his administration is doing. And that's what makes it more frustrating than ever, is because if you look at it with any sort of common sense or any sort of logic or critical thinking, you will see that what Trump is doing is just such crap. And it's so crazy to see how many people believe him, and all these people are just not using their critical thinking or common sense to decipher that. Not to mention that Trump believes that the environment doesn't matter, and he believes that climate change is a hoax, even though there are countless studies and scientists yelling at American politicians to care about the environment, because if we don't, the human race could cease to exist as we know it in a time that is uncomfortably close. So it's absolutely ridiculous to see him throw a bunch of lies and misinformation at the situation when there is so much logic and science to prove that climate change is real and that we should be caring about it more than we are. And it just feels like Trump as an administration is dragging down everybody else with him, because he is making decisions that are not scientifically based. So all of us who do believe in science are being dragged down into a scary dystopian world because he feels like doing that. How does all of this impact me as a Canadian? I feel like a lot of people would say that the United States is on a stage, a world stage, and I personally also believe that that is true. So for a lot of Western societies, especially Canada, also places like Australia and Europe, the US is kind of a role model for these other countries. So a lot of the times, something that might happen in the US might also shortly after, a few years later, be reflected in other countries as well. And Canada is a really good example of that, because we are very geographically close to the United States, obviously just above them. That has a big impact on the way American politics affects Canadian politics. So because America has recently elected a far right-leaning fascist leader, it makes me afraid that Canada will also elect a right-leaning fascist leader. And that leads me to the current situation in Canadian politics and the current leader of the Conservative Party in Canada, Pierre Poilievre. So Pierre Poilievre is concerning for a lot of reasons. He believes that we should be taxing rich people less in Canada. He believes that we need to be stricter on immigration. And he believes that there are only two genders as well. So that just shows that Pierre Poilievre's beliefs on sex and gender has a direct impact on me and my life as someone who is non-binary and does not fall between one of those two genders that is listed in what Pierre Poilievre believes to be the reality of gender. So my existence is directly being called into question, and that is very scary. All the Canadian trans people who have the X as their gender on their identification cards, so whether their driver's licenses or their passports, those people might not legally be recognized as people anymore in the country if Pierre Poilievre wins and if that's what he decides to do politically. So I shouldn't have to explain to you why that's terrifying to me and to all the people I know who are trans or non-binary. It's fucking terrifying. And I don't know any other way to describe it other than that. Pierre Poilievre is also anti-abortion, so he'd be taking away the rights of anyone with a uterus who wishes to get an abortion if they got pregnant through any means. And that would just be taking Canada back decades of progress that have been made in terms of women's rights. I also believe that Pierre Poilievre is anti-vaccine. So that's also very concerning because vaccines are an integral part of keeping humanity alive and continuing the way it is. So if he takes away vaccine mandates, then that's enabling people to no longer get them, which puts other people at risk, especially immunocompromised people or the elderly or the very young. But it also enables those crazy right-wing lunatics who are hiding in the shadows to come out, and it enables their beliefs to be valid, which I don't believe that they are. And especially with what happened a few years ago with the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa, it is very concerning that Pierre Poilievre is willing to stand with those types of people and is willing to give those types of beliefs a platform and see them as valid. I personally know so many people in Canada who are immigrants or who are queer people. And if he's elected and decides to make these types of changes, they will have direct impacts on my life, the life of my family, and the life of almost all of my friends. It would stop me and other trans people who I know personally from properly changing our identification cards to the gender that properly reflects us. And that is a problem because that can be extremely dysphoric, and it also doesn't necessarily represent who we are as people, and it will clearly flag that we are outside of the gender binary, which can cause us to experience a lot more violence than the average person. So yeah, Pierre Poilievre is a very scary figure for me and for people like me, and I really hope that we can avoid him entering the parliament anytime soon. I know that things were looking pretty grim when Justin Trudeau was still the leader of the Liberal Party, but recently Justin Trudeau, who is the current leader of the Liberal Party and Prime Minister of Canada, has recently resigned and stepped down. So because he will no longer be the leader of the Liberal Party, someone else can step up, and pretty much everybody hated Trudeau in the year leading up to him resigning. People on the right hated him, people on the left hated him. So it was kind of like a reflection of the situation going on in America, where Joe Biden was the leader of the Conservative Party in the US and everybody hated him. And then Kamala was elected and her approval rating shot up, and the approval rating of the Conservative Party also shot up. So something similar has been happening in Canada, where ever since Trudeau has stepped down, we are looking for a new leader to the Liberal Party. Based on the candidates who are running right now, there has been a lot of faith restored in the Liberal Party. So I'm really hoping that the Liberal Party will be able to come in clutch and save us from a Conservative Party win this election. We'll see what happens in the fall when the election will be called. At least I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. But hopefully that is what will be able to happen. And a lot of Canadians will have to think about voting strategically, especially people on the left who are afraid of Conservatives but would rather not vote for the Liberals. There might have to be a bit of strategic voting going on by still voting for the Liberal Party just in order to avoid the Conservatives winning. Me and pretty much everybody I know will be waiting with bated breath to see what happens in terms of that. The world is an absolutely insane place right now. I haven't even touched upon the issues that are still going on in Gaza, the genocide that is being committed against the Palestinians. I have not addressed anything in terms of Russia and Ukraine, the invasion of Ukraine. All that stuff is stuff that's been going on, unfortunately, for years now, which is way too long. And all of that is still terrifying and is still very mentally heavy for me and a lot of the people that I know. But I wanted to come on and specifically discuss my thoughts on what's been going on with Canada and the US. Obviously, I've only covered a few points of it. I didn't even get into the fact that the tariffs that are being imposed between the US and Canada are absolutely insane as well, and how these tariffs will only come back to bite the asses of the people of those countries. And we've already seen it start. For example, in the US, the price of eggs has already shot up. I think in some places it's like $12 for 12 eggs, which is absolutely just unbelievable. But this is the consequence of tariffs that Trump is imposing. And I'm hoping that people will see the consequence of the people who they voted for. It is very hard to pay attention to the news right now, and all of the things that are going on everywhere in the world are very mentally heavy. So feel free to take time away from the news. I do definitely still keep myself informed on the basics of what's going on, but I don't pay attention to the nuances as much as I used to, just because it is really hard to listen to mentally. And it'll give you more time to be present in your personal life and in your own body, which is something that can easily be forgotten during times like this. Overall, though, I think that's everything that I wanted to say for now, considering the situation. If you have any thoughts regarding the political situation anywhere right now, feel free to let me know. I am open to listening to what you have to say, unless it is outwardly racist, homophobic, transphobic, xenophobic, anything like that I'm not willing to hear. I will do my best to make the next video less political, but what's been going on lately has been very hard to ignore, and I felt like I just needed to come on and discuss my thoughts about the situation and let you know where I stand on all this stuff. So until the next time, I hope that you have a good rest of your day, evening, night, whatever time it is for you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!